Commander King here with a little bit of a more challenging structure to draw. This time we have CO2, so I know CO2 is going to bond with one CN2O somehow, and I'm going to try to picture that out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to count my valence electrons like I've always been doing and think about how many electrons am I going to need to actually bond this. So again, I have my carbon. Again, I'm going to draw like this. We talked about why we sketch it like this. And then I also have two oxygen atoms, so I'm going to draw the Lewis dot structures for that. And I know, okay, how many valence electrons do I have? I've got 4 plus the 6, 10, 16. So I've got 16 valence electrons here for me to use up. Okay. So I know I'm going to now, before I do that, I want to just think about, okay, I know this C can probably bond to 4 other things based on its Lewis dot structure. I know this O would probably prefer to only bond to 2 things based on these 2 places that it can bond with, and also this oxygen probably bonds with 2 other places, just looking at what it's starting with. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true, but that's what I'm going to assume for now. And now I'm ready to draw the skeleton, all right, or the skeletal structure. And I see, okay, C is my first atom, and it can bond with 4 things, so it's probably okay to assume that goes in the center. And to draw my skeletal structure, I'm just going to connect it to the 2 other O's. So I figure, hey, that might not be a bad idea. All right, so now I count up, all right, I want to check if everything's happy. So I'm going to do a quick check. All right, and if I do a quick check, I see a few problems. All right, well, first of all, one of my problems is, are these elements happy? Well, the C has 2 electrons from this, 2 electrons from this that's being shared with it. So the C currently has 4 electrons around it, but we know all atoms are stable when they have a full outer shell, so 8 electrons. And now we think about this oxygen, and we know this oxygen also prefers to have 8 electrons, but currently it's only has 2 electrons. So we know that both of these oxygens are unhappy because they don't have the full amount of electrons that they want. And also, so we know, the octet rule does not apply here. We haven't fulfilled that. And the other thing we need to think about is, how about, do we use up our valence electrons? Well, we started with 16. I have 2 bonds of 2 each, so we only used up 4 valence electrons. All right, so I know I've got 12 more to put on. So I'm going to try to think about how I can put those on. And, well, I think there are a couple ways to think about this, but one thing I'm going to try is, I know carbon likes to double bond a lot, and same with oxygen. We see a lot of double bonds. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to actually start with double bonding here. Okay. Now, if I double bond, I'm thinking, all right, well, how many electrons are around my C? 2, 4, 6, 8. So the C seems happy now. Okay. Now, in this situation, I've used up 2, 4, 6, 8 valence electrons. I've used up 8 valence electrons for those 4 bonds. Each bond, again, has 2 electrons. So I'm getting closer, and at least my C is happy now. All right? So now the next thing I'm going to try is think, okay, well, I've got electrons left over. I can't really bond to anything else, so I'm probably just going to have to put these electrons on. So what I'm thinking is, all right, I've got 4 electrons that this oxygen is sharing with this carbon. I know I want 8, so I'm just going to add 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this oxygen has 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons plus the 4 that it's sharing with the carbon, and that's going to give this 8 electrons. So it too is happy, and I can do the same thing on this O here. So I'm going to add 2 O's there, and 2 pairs of electrons. Now there's 8 electrons here, and it seems like this guy is happy too because it's got 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons around it. Now I just got to check that I've used the right number of electrons. I've used 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I've used 16 of my electrons that I originally had, so this now checks out. The octet rule, everyone is happy with that. So this is actually the final structure, CO2. So I'm just going to draw it over here, my final structure, CO2 with the valence electrons still here. And this is what I would consider my final structure for CO2.